Sometimes the message can get lost in translation. Hi, I'm Rich Christensen. You might know me from Pink's All Out, now Arm Drop Live. I'm in Houston, Texas doing a show.
For 4 years, Pink's All Out was one of the most explosive things on television. A show so popular, it packed drag strips with 15,000 screaming fans. A show so successful that Speed Channel executives treated it like must-see television. Then, at the height of its success, something happened. In February 2011, viewers were handed a strangely upbeat announcement claiming the show was merely taking a break. A hiatus. Rumors spread. Insiders whispered about what was really happening behind closed doors. And the official story coming from the network didn't match what many people close to the show were saying. Because the real reason Pink's All Out ended wasn't low ratings. It was a behind-the-scenes disaster nobody saw coming. The show nobody thought would last a single season. Rich Christensen walked into the Speed Channel offices with nothing but an obsession and a pitch nobody wanted to fund. He had spent over a decade cold-calling television executives across Los Angeles, pitching drag racing concepts to people who kept saying no. No major budget, no celebrity angle, no network support. Just a guy from New Hampton, Iowa, with a degree in radio and television from the University of Northern Iowa and an unshakable belief that real cars, real people, and real money on the line would make for extraordinary television. When the Speed Channel finally gave him a green light in 2005, the budget for the original Pinks was so low that the vice president of programming, Robert Ecker, later admitted he did not believe they could even finish the show. The original concept was as raw as it gets. Two racers showed up at a drag strip and put their actual vehicle titles on the line. Before a single wheel turned, they argued for half the episode over every possible variable: lane choice, car lengths, reaction time rules, and repair time allowances. That negotiation process was not television padding. It was the exact ritual that happened at every street racing scene across the country, and it felt completely authentic because it was. When the arguing stopped, the racing started. Best of 5 format. The loser handed over the keys, watched their car get loaded onto a stranger's trailer, and found their own way home. Nobody was performing. The stakes were genuinely personal. And when the show dropped in July 2005, the Speed Channel discovered something they had not fully prepared for: an audience that was absolutely starving for exactly this. The gambling problem that killed the original show. Fame created the exact problem that ended everything Christensen had built on the original format. The bigger Pinks got, the harder it became to ignore what the pink slip format actually looked like on paper. Local authorities in multiple states started examining the show closely and arriving at the same conclusion. Racing for vehicle titles on a public drag strip had serious characteristics of illegal gambling. That was a gray area that everyone involved had been quietly hoping would stay gray. As the show collected millions of viewers and national media coverage, that hope evaporated fast. Track owners started receiving formal warnings from local authorities about hosting the production. The threat of prosecution was specific enough that drag strips across the country began refusing to open their gates to the crew. A show built entirely around live racing at physical tracks cannot survive without tracks. The original pink slip format officially shut down in 2008 after 5 seasons. That death created a genuine crisis for the Speed Channel, which had invested serious promotional energy into the Pinks brand and had 0 replacement ready. But it also lit a fire under Rich Christensen. Losing the format he had spent years building forced him to redesign the entire concept from scratch. And what he built the second time around turned out to be bigger, louder, and far more beloved than anything the original show had managed. How? Pink's All Out changed everything. The new version launched in 2006, while the original was still in its final seasons, and the differences were immediately clear. Vehicle titles were gone entirely. In their place, an $18,000 prize pool, a massive open competition format, and crowds that dwarfed anything the original grudge match setup had drawn. Hundreds of grassroots drag racers from across the entire country drove to professional tracks with whatever machines they had built in their own garages. Single-episode crowds regularly hit 15,000 people. Episodes were filmed at different drag strips from coast to coast, giving every single week a distinct local flavor and a different regional racing culture on screen. Every episode costs over $400,000 to produce in high definition, handled by Pullin Television out of Los Angeles. The production team whittled a field of 400 drivers down to 16 competitors using 2 qualifying passes, selecting the cars with the most consistent times. Those 16 raced in single elimination rounds until 2 drivers remained, then settled it in a best-of-3 final showdown. Clean, simple, and relentlessly entertaining. The rule that gave the show its entire identity was the all-out rule. Every driver ran their car at absolute maximum effort from the very first qualifying pass all the way through the final round. No backing off the throttle. No playing games with speed. No strategic sandbagging to gain an advantage in earlier rounds. Run flat out every single time on every single pass, or get disqualified immediately. That single rule was a direct answer to the biggest complaint about the original show, where sharp drivers manipulated their times during negotiations to get favorable starting positions. All Out made that strategy completely impossible. The audience responded with the kind of loyalty that money cannot manufacture. Racing forums became community hubs for the show. Fans tracked episode locations, showed up to tapings by the thousands, and argued passionately about every ruling. Speed Channel President Hunter Nickel was such a genuine believer that he attended every single taping personally, standing in giant clouds of tire smoke between races, visibly fired up about what they had built together. Single-episode crowds hit 15,000 people at tracks across the country. Ticket sales, vendor revenue, and local economic activity surrounding each taping made Pink's All Out a genuine event, not just a television production. Tracks competed to host the show because a taping weekend drove more foot traffic and more revenue than almost any other event they could schedule. The show was not just popular on screen. It was a traveling economic engine for the grassroots motorsports industry at a time when bracket racing attendance at local tracks was already beginning to decline nationally. Why millions of people could not look away. This worked for one reason that heavily produced reality television almost always misses completely. The cars on screen looked like the cars sitting in viewers' driveways and garages right now. Classic muscle cars, beat-up street trucks, modified imports, tube chassis builds, and rough primer-painted projects built on weekends with whatever budget was left after rent. The drivers were not professionals with factory sponsorships and full-time crew chiefs. These were regular people who bought their parts from swap meets, borrowed tools from neighbors, and towed their race cars on open trailers behind pickup trucks held together by optimism and duct tape. That relatability created a specific emotional investment that no celebrity car build show could touch. When a gorgeous, expensive build lost to a rough-looking garage car because the rough car was tuned better for the track conditions, it was not an upset. It was the whole point. The all-out rule meant consistency won over horsepower. A driver who could run the same time repeatedly had a better shot than someone who occasionally went fast but could not repeat it under pressure. That rewarded the kind of preparation and knowledge that grassroots racers had been developing for decades without any national recognition. 3 things made the community bond to this show in a way that outlasted its cancellation by years. First, the cars were real. Second, the prize money was real. $18,000 represented actual payback for years of garage investment, not a plastic trophy and bragging rights at the local strip. Third, the platform was something genuinely new. Before Pink's All Out, a fast garage builder from a small town had essentially no path to national television. This show offered that path to anyone with a consistent car and the nerve to show up. The problems nobody wanted to admit out loud. By 2009 and 2010, the same forum communities that had built the show's reputation were starting to turn on it in specific and documented ways. The loudest complaint was episode balance. The production team had started filling more and more runtime with interviews, personality segments, and long monologues from Rich Christensen. The audience had come for racing and was increasingly vocal about how little racing they were actually getting per episode. Forum members openly admitted to fast-forwarding through most of the talking content just to reach the actual rundown of the track. That was a serious signal that the show had drifted from what made it essential. Christensen himself had become a lightning rod for criticism. His role as the main official on the all-out rule required split-second judgment calls on whether a driver had genuinely backed off the throttle or experienced a legitimate mechanical variation. Weather shifts, altitude differences, track preparation changes, and atmospheric conditions can all legitimately alter a car's time with no driver error involved. Several of Christensen's disqualifications in the later seasons landed on drivers who appeared to have experienced exactly those natural variations, and the rulings felt punitive and inconsistent to the community watching them. The word arrogant started appearing in forum threads about him regularly. The field composition had also shifted in ways that quietly drained the original energy. Early seasons featured a genuinely wild variety of builds: Grandma's station wagon, a primer-painted grocery getter, a bone-stock muscle car with fresh tires, lined up next to serious purpose-built race machines. That variety was chaotic and completely unpredictable. By the final seasons, purpose-built cars, optimized specifically for the all-out format, dominated the field because rational competitors had figured out exactly what the format rewarded. The result was faster, but it was less interesting to watch. The grassroots chaos that made early episodes magnetic had been smoothed out by competitive evolution. None of these problems was fatal on its own. Every long-running show develops friction. A network invested in protecting a successful brand could have fixed every single one of these issues with adjustments to the production guidelines and format rules. The Speed Channel did not fix them, and the reason why reveals the actual story. The decision that quietly ended the show. The relationship between Rich Christensen and the Speed Channel had been deteriorating well before the cancellation press release landed. The racing community already knew about a feud between Christensen, Speed, and Pullen Television, the production company that owned the show under contract. The split between Christensen and Pullen was not a secret. After the cancellation, Christensen moved immediately to launch a new show on Spike TV rather than staying anywhere near the Speed Channel ecosystem. That move said everything about how broken the behind-the-scenes relationship had become. The community noticed. The forums tracked it, but the feud between producers was only one layer of a much larger problem. Fox Corporation, which owned the Speed Channel, had been running financial projections on its cable network portfolio and arriving at a conclusion that made Pink's All Out irrelevant, regardless of its ratings. In 2011, Speed was generating approximately 22 cents per subscriber per month from cable providers. ESPN was collecting $5.04. That gap was not a gap, it was a canyon. Fox calculated that a general sports network built on the Speed infrastructure could charge 80 cents per subscriber per month against 90 million households. The math translates to roughly $350 million annually under the Speed brand versus over $1 billion annually under a rebranded general sports network. That difference was the entire explanation for everything that followed. Fox Sports 1 was announced officially in March 2013 and launched on August 17, 2013, the exact day Speed Channel signed off permanently. FS1 was designed to compete directly with ESPN by carrying college football, college basketball, soccer, mixed martial arts, and live motorsports together on a single platform. A 400-driver bracket race at a regional drag strip in front of 15,000 fans did not belong in that programming strategy. Pink's All Out was not canceled because it failed. It was canceled because it was in the way of a corporate decision that had already been made at a level far above any conversation about drag racing. The fake hiatus and what really happened. In February 2011, Speed Channel issued a press release that was carefully engineered to avoid saying the word cancellation. The language was warm, grateful, and deliberately vague. Hunter Nickel called Pink's All Out one of the most successful shows in the history of the network and offered a sweeping thank you to the fans, the racers, the tracks, the sponsors, and the production crew. The statement pointed out that the upcoming Firebird International Raceway episode from Phoenix would be the 43rd episode since the franchise launched at Texas Motorplex in 2006 and framed it as a proud milestone. It said the show was going on hiatus. It set no return date. It offered no specific future plans. The racing community rejected this framing in real time. Forum threads lit up immediately with the same observation. Television shows that go on indefinite hiatus, with no timeline and no committed future, almost never return. The friendly language was a calculated way to manage fan reaction while avoiding the backlash that comes with direct honesty. Speed Channel was saying goodbye without being willing to say it directly. The 43rd episode from Firebird turned out to be the last one ever produced under the original format. The hiatus never ended. The cameras never rolled on Pink's All Out under Speed Channel again. What happened after the cancellation? The cancellation did not end Rich Christensen. If anything, it revealed exactly how much of the brand had always lived inside him rather than inside the network. After the non-compete agreements with Fox expired, Christensen moved on two fronts simultaneously. He signed a content development deal with MAVTV American Real Network in early 2013 and launched One and Done, a weekly drag racing competition series where two drivers negotiated every variable of their head-to-head race before settling it on the quarter mile. At the same time, he partnered with Brian Bosone of Boss One Media and spent 2 full years fighting to acquire the rights to the Pink's brand back from Fox. That acquisition closed, and Christensen secured new episode berths on Outdoor Channel through Jim Liberatore, the former Speed president who had moved to Outdoor after the FS1 transition. 4 new Pink's All Out episodes premiered on Outdoor Channel in March 2016. The first new content under the original banner since 2011. The revival kept the all-out rule, the open competition format, and the grassroots identity that the original audience had loved. It even brought back pink slip stakes for special showcase rounds. Drivers showed up. Fans showed up. But without the cable infrastructure and promotional muscle of a major network behind it, the revival could not reach the nationwide audience. The Speed Channel version had commanded at its peak. The show found its current permanent home on PowerTube TV, a streaming platform built specifically for automotive enthusiasts, where fans can stream episodes from both original Pink's and Pink's All Out and access new content being produced under the classic banner. Every year since 2011, drag racing fans have asked the same question: why has nothing replaced it? Street Outlaws became a massive success after the cancellation and genuinely fills a space in the motorsports television landscape. But Street Outlaws is a fundamentally different product, built on a fundamentally different idea. It follows a specific set of recurring personalities through a specific underground culture. And the drama comes from those specific relationships and rivalries. Viewers watch Street Outlaws for the characters. They watched Pink's All Out for the competition itself. That distinction matters more than it might appear. Street Outlaws is a closed world. The cast is established. The culture is defined. New people can enter only as challengers or supporting figures. Pink's All Out was an open door. A $60 entry fee and a fast enough qualifying pass could put any garage builder from any state on national television in front of millions of viewers. The show treated grassroots racers as legitimate athletes, competing for meaningful prize money, rather than as colorful characters in someone else's ongoing story. That combination of genuine open access, real cash stakes, honest maximum effort rules, and rotating locations giving every episode a distinct regional identity has never been replicated. The Speed Channel killed Pink's All Out to fund a corporate rebrand worth an estimated additional $650 million in annual subscriber revenue. The racing was authentic. The community was dedicated. The numbers were strong. None of it mattered when a billion-dollar business decision was already on the table. The show deserved better than a fake hiatus announcement and a quiet corporate burial. The community knew it then, and the empty space it left behind has proven it every year since. Pink's All Out didn't just disappear. It left a gap in drag racing television that still hasn't been truly filled. The cars are still running. The fans are still watching. But the format that brought it all together is gone. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the real stories behind legendary shows and what really happened behind the scenes.